Beautiful. Hello and welcome to the Radiant Rebirth Online Retreat, where we are igniting our age of empowerment, owning who we truly are, gaining clarity of direction so that we can take that soul-aligned action with joy, grace, and ease. Today, I have the immense pleasure of welcoming Tracy L Clark. Tracy is an award-winning high-performance energy coach, a hyper-intuitive energy healer. She's a teacher, a healer, an international speaker, an author, leader, and a humanitarian. Tracy is also the founder of the TLC Academy of Extraordinary Living, where she helps clients to transform their lives and embrace their unique gifts. Tracy, it's such a pleasure to welcome you here today. I'm really excited for our conversation.
Oh, you mean both. We were just saying, this is the greatest time in history. We should be all honored to be here. And
Yeah,
although it can be a little bit scary, we don't get change. Unless we go through that fear, right? And that's what
exactly.
we're doing right now, which is beautiful because the other side, I think people are going to be very happy for sure.
Um, it really is beautiful. I suppose if you're grounded in something, and I know part of our topic, well, our topic
Yeah.
that we're talking about today is moving from
Yeah.
fear to fearsome.
Yeah.
And, I know that you help clients move through their fear so they can really
Yeah.
tap into their fullest potential and their gifts. What are some of the main fears that you find, especially for women, stepping into their age of empowerment,
Yeah.
maybe sort of in their 50s? What are some of the
Mhm.
fears that you typically see in this group?
Yeah, the biggest thing that I see, so for people, I'm 53, so I've kind of
Mm,
been through this journey, and obviously woke up over 25 years ago. I'd like people to understand, although we all come with the gifts, because
mm,
it's important. Because I almost feel like sometimes I went through them earlier, because now I see so many people in this
yeah,
demographic, like just women is in general waking up. The biggest thing I notice is the hardest with when we're looking at transition is all the imprints that we grow up with of what the expectations of who you're supposed to be. And people say, okay, I can understand. I was expected to be maybe a mother, a wife, a
mhm,
businesswoman, a career, whatever it is. But what the big thing is we forget to look at those memories, those imprints, not only through our family lineage, but what we grow up with and are conditioned to from the minute in your family and then when you go to school and you get your jobs and everybody else's belief system and then the programming from TV, right? It's programmed.
right,
They
right,
program you what to think. So those imprints get locked in the body. And I work
mm,
so much on the body because, as we know, and Dr. Bruce Lipton had really isolated this. I was on I helped produce a film he was in and
mm,
years ago, and where he isolated, right, that the memories are outside ourselves.
that's right.
And so, yeah, so a lot of people get that concept, but they forget that you have to have that awareness to actually remove it out of the body because the
Mhm,
imprint is what keeps us stuck. And that's where, when people say, well, I'm afraid of change, I don't know what's on the other side. We've all been there. We get to the change and go, gosh, why didn't I do that 5 years ago? What was I thinking? Or we can make the excuses because, like, oh, well, what if the economy goes? Or what if this goes? Or versus really looking at that heart centered space because I always say it's fear to faith,
mm,
and faith to me is trust, no believe in that higher power that maybe you can feel it with your goosebumps, you know it, but maybe you're not knowing it strong enough because no is no, right? Like you just feel
right,
it, you're like, I don't know what's happening, I don't know what I'm doing here, but I just know, oh my god, it's the right thing. So you're trusting through the process, and because we've been conditioned to think, not feel,
mhm,
that's the biggest part. So for people listening, it's like the simplest tool I start to say to people when you start removing the energy out of the body is stop truthfully. You have to ask this word truthfully. How do I feel about this versus when I'm thinking? Because your thought process, for the most part, as you know, are other people's programs coming in.
that's
And that's where I find the very beginning, because then you get it's like that onion, right? Then the fear of failure comes up, or the fear of what is my family going to think if I change, or now I'm selfish. I'm this selfish woman because really you just devoted yourself for all of these other people. Now you're selfish because you want to take 5 minutes to figure out who you are and what you want to do.
yeah,
But that's also the thing that society is really still behind on, is understanding that most of us come up against our hiccups and challenges because we're not in alignment with our purpose. And I want to share this to anybody listening, and maybe it'll click in. So I sold my first company in 1996. I was 26 years old, to one
Mm,
of Canada's largely publicly traded companies.
mm,
Everybody was, oh, must be nice, blah, blah, blah. Well, I was still, was I happy? Happy? No, I was in a dead marriage because I got married young, all that, whatever
mm,
was happening. But here's the thing is, even on the financial aspect, things, I started to go this cycle and the relationship, highs, lows, move it, lose it, all our programming. It wasn't until I locked into my purpose and what I really wanted to do. Was it easy to do the transition? Because now what I was doing, I was consulting, running companies in finances, and it was like, I still wasn't happy. I could make a lot of money, lose a lot of money, relation again. And I'm like, I'm good at it. What's happening? And I realized all these years later that I was like, wow, when I locked into what I felt I was to do, but like everybody listening, I was going, well, who would come to that? And I love it. I do it. I've been doing this work forever. But what if no one shows up? What if this happens? What if no one? And it was my own chatter because that's what the dark energies do, right? They
mhm.
chatter in our brain. They want us not to be on our mission. And I will tell you, 100%, because it's a long time, a long big journey. 100% of the people that actually, and I call it bridging. So you don't necessarily just jump from one thing to the next, unless you maybe you're forced at that point because you've
Mhm.
neglected it. But when we all anchor into our purpose, it is amazing how everything transitions to the point of, I have the most beautiful partner in my life. He's amazing. The financial stuff, I don't have to do anything. The growth, it just keeps coming and coming.
Yeah,
The emotional connection, the support that I see from friends and family, and like things that I never had as a young person because I had such a challenging upbringing. So what I say to people is it's the key is it's not when I get the money, this is going to happen. When I get the relationship, this. You must work on the self to find your
that's it.
actual love. What do you love? You love doing this. I love doing this. Maybe you love building things. Maybe you love owning a coffee shop, or maybe you love just being out in service in a different way. But whatever your way is, and in your gut it's the right way, it's going to reap all those rewards that you're kind of going the wrong direction in.
And I love that. So much of what you said is so powerful. And I love how you described, you were you had incredible success. You were doing
Yeah.
all the things, but it wasn't until you locked into your purpose. And
Mhm.
many would have thought that you were doing your
Yeah,
purpose, you were living your purpose because you had all the external
I did.
signs.
I had the big house. I had the fancy cars. I'm 26 years old. I had a husband. I had a kid. I had all this stuff that looked 40. And I was like, oh, it must be nice. I was dying inside every day. I was like,
Yeah.
I am
And
not
so
happy.
yeah, and so how, so you had the courage to shake off what was externally successful to say, I'm locking into my purpose, I'm locking into my
Yeah.
purpose. How did you lock into your purpose when on paper it was all
Hmm.
great? What was
Yeah.
that process like for you of locking into your purpose? I love that.
Yeah. It actually, exactly what I was saying now. I got to this point and I actually woke up one day and I had this crossroads.
Mm,
I could do what I'm doing today, all these years later. I got a really lucrative job offer downtown in the bank again. Like I'm talking, everyone thought I was nuts when I said no. But I went down my stairs and I was like, I can't sell my soul to the devil anymore.
mm.
That's what actually came out of my mouth. I'm not selling
Ooh,
it to the devil anymore.
goosebumps.
And
Okay.
I'm like, and I'd been on my path, like my path, my healing with my own stuff for so long. And I said, all right, I just kind of looked up and I said, okay, universe, I'm going to take a leap of faith
Mm,
because here's the thing. And I said this to myself. I said, what's the worst that can happen? I can go get one of those jobs down there if that's where you want me to go. Or I can really, I have to know. I have to know this void inside. And the minute I said that, it was like this weight, like if you have the biggest backpack, literally lifted off.
yeah.
And it literally, I stood there and I was like, and there was a sense of peace that came in my body that never left. And for days, I was walking around going, I gotta leave. Like, I gotta go. What's happening here? But it was a conviction. Like I had a
Mm,
conviction that if I don't try this, I'm not going to get to the end of my life and have regrets. Now, And for me, I had a few more catalysts. I had a lot of near death experiences. I died, I flatlined. Like I tried to check out many, many times.
Right.
So for me, I had another catalyst. And I say to people, you don't want to get to the end of your life, because I do see a lot of people that are transitioning and this was happens. And it really sunk in. It's like, this is you don't get your time back. This is your life.
Mm-hmm.
But we were
Mm-hmm.
here. And so they're showing to say it this way. They say it's like we're finding our way out of a maze. So when we're born, the energies that want the old, that always co-opted the world, that are letting go of now, they
Mm-hmm.
put us under a huge pile of laundry. Your job is to have fun with doing the laundry, but for your own life, because nobody external from you really will ever get what you really require, because they're not living in your body, they're not you. But our job is, right, to pass our grades in our school, but we can't pass them if we don't make our change and moves. And the why
That's
we do
it.
that is by, right, really solidifying in our hearts. And this is one thing that I can say to people. I've been called crazy 100 times. I was told, well, you have kids, you can't do that. You're a single mom. What are you thinking about? And I got to a point where I'm like, I'm going to cut out the noise. So I always have this saying with clients: sharing is not always caring. So say nothing until you're in a place where you're ready to say. And if people are asking you what you're doing, don't tell your friends and family. They're all going to have an opinion. And just say, you know what? I'm just busy. I'll tell you when I'm ready.
I
And remove that underlining energy. You will see very quickly who is helping you and who is
Mhm,
pulling you down by
mhm.
just their words. And remember that people listening, your words are very powerful. And we hear this, but how many times do you actually soak it in? And when I give people an exercise to say, spend a day really aware of what people are saying to you and how they're saying it, it's a game changer. You will decide who you share with and who you don't. 24 hours.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And, you know, a really important piece of that is faith, right? You had
Yeah.
faith.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not something that we're sort of meant to have faith for the on the external, you know,
Uh-huh.
look externally,
Yeah.
for the answers. But
Mm-hmm.
when you sort of like, start the journey inward, and you have to have faith for these nudges that you're getting,
Mm-hmm.
these cosmic pivots, I call them, these decisions where this doesn't make
Yeah.
sense, but I'm gonna have faith, and
Yeah.
then taking that leap. I
Yeah.
love how you described, once you did, everything opened up for you. Everything opened up for you.
Yes.
So, in your work, as this process starts to happen,
Mhm.
because we all know that clients start the journey
Yeah.
and then
Ah.
some things start to happen, as you
Mhm.
say, externally people see, are you crazy? Maybe their family doesn't understand. And then maybe it starts to sort of slow down, and when you can have this sort of journey of peaks and troughs. How do you
Yeah.
keep clients who are ready to take the leap
Mhm.
from, taking that two steps back? Sometimes they might need to, but
Yeah.
how can you kind of keep them on the path of faith and
Mhm.
trust, knowing
Yeah.
that what they are ready to receive is for them? Sometimes receiving is tricky, but
Oh,
receiving.
well, it's hard, but it's also hard because I remind them. I had fun with someone this morning, reminding them that we go on that journey of learning, but they're falling back into a pattern of acceptance,
Mm,
right? So when we go, I I I used to teach it like this a lot. We are all, how do we say it? Every family is born with a laundry cleaner.
mm,
So one person specifically takes that lead to clean the family's laundry to make a change. So everybody listening to this right now, they're here because they're making a change. They're like, I'm different. I'm making a change. Okay. There's a point where you stop doing their laundry. There's a point where you go, you know what? I've been empathic. I've been sensitive. I've listened. I don't know how to receive. And that's where, when we get to the crossroads,
mm.
it's not selfish to say, I'm sorry, I can't help you. And that's usually where I see people fall back,
Okay.
because what happens is their friends start to fall away. Oh my gosh, I might be more alone. Or your family falls away, or that relationship isn't as close. And I see this a lot with people that maybe they're very close, to their sisters or their brothers or their mothers. And now there's a distance. So now they feel that what they've done is wrong because the conditioning is, Well, its blood is thicker than water, even though it doesn't mean it's healthy all the time.
Exactly.
So that patterning. So what I'm doing is I always remind them like it's just a pattern that is breaking.
Hmm.
So when we get to that, it's a crossroads, the pattern wants to go. And 100% of the time, you're going to get the test of, okay, which path are you going? Are you going to continue? Or do you want to go back there? And sometimes we go back to the closet to double check, and you're like, okay, I'm going, I'm running. And that's that little pullback.
Yeah.
But a lot of people will get off their path and they'll go back to what is comfortable
Hmm.
because they start to feel their life change. And then you feel the power inside you because you're doing it, you're changing it. So it's actually your inner power is starting to rise up. And then you're like, oh my God, I followed those nudges and look what happened. Whoa, I asked for that and I created it. And that's the fear where
Yeah.
we got to override with the faith. The fear is the people inside, and I've seen this, they're like, you're just afraid that now you realize one, you're creating your whole life. Two, you're responsible for everything in your life. So you can't complain anymore. And three, you have this new inner power where you
Hmm.
can actually not only expand your life, but if you do that, you are going to change all these other lives. So a lot of people are afraid of that responsibility.
Yeah.
And they're afraid now of going, whoa, or they're like, what if my family dynamic does? Like, what if my marriage ends? Or what if my relationship ends? Or my kids don't want to talk to me? It's okay. It's their journey. And
Yeah.
those are the tests that people are afraid to walk through.
Mm.
And I've walked through a lot of them, and I'll tell you most of them. And in the other side, it just gets better and better and better and better, and you get more peaceful. So if I can encourage anyone, when you're at that crossroads, you reach out to wherever you're getting the motivation
Mm.
or your coach or whoever it is and say, I want to go back, because 99% of the time you're just afraid that you have all this newfound wisdom that's opened
Yeah.
up, that now you're learning how to allocate it, and it can feel overwhelming. So people go back to what's comfortable.
That's absolutely right. And being afraid of their own power,
Yeah.
this greatness
Yeah.
can be just as just as difficult as the fear of failures. Fear of
Yeah.
success and growth can be as tricky.
Yes.
And so you mentioned, go back to your support system, go back to your coach. And I do think it's really important for,
Mhm.
you know, people who are ready to kind of take these next steps, this
Yeah.
action, to have a support system, to have
Yeah.
some people, some like-minded people around them. That's sort of what, the Build Foundation and
Yeah.
Radiant Rebirth kind of birthed itself for that
Mhm.
purpose. With your TLC Academy of Extraordinary Living, do you
Yeah.
have certain steps that you take your clients through, or what does a journey look like within your academy?
Yeah, I like to empower people to be their own guru, their own boss. Because
Mm,
for me, my journey's a little different. I did have one person, but I didn't have a support system. Like I
mhm.
really didn't, and I had to figure this whole sort of thing out. And then I was reading, and looking, and studying, and ended up in all these really cool places. And it sort of then I did develop, and that's what it is learning what are the practical things that you can start with, moving up to more. I always say you can have elementary school, high school, university, and then your PhD of energy and understanding your power where you are. So it's going back to some of it. It's like you have to use a muscle. You're not going to get a six pack by one time working out. So I very focus on what are the muscles we're using and the energy tools you can use. So you know what to do when you're
Mhm.
walking down the street. You know, if you're in a meeting, what tool can you pull out? How can you use it? A lot of people, if there's a distraction that comes on, which happens, right? Then they fall back and they're like, oh my God, I got to get back on my tools. And they're like, oh,
Yeah.
life just changed again. So I focus on letting people understand. Like, I don't go back to, okay, let's ground. That's kind of, we're sort of past. It's like, okay, what are the tools you need to be practical in your life, to
Mhm.
use and shift? So when you go out, you're helping and teaching everybody else. I shift with them. Obviously we all do that, right? Shift, show them what we're doing. But then I teach. So it's teaching and learning how every muscle in your energy body is getting activated, because your whole, and I focus a lot to help people understand what their body's always telling them, because we know your body is your compass. Like I'm writing this new book. It's like called, it's really has to do with your inner compass, but it's like, because we forget that every part of our body is talking. So,
Hmm.
so often people are so used to just, again, like you said, it's been conditioned through, unfortunately, religious lines and political lines and family lines. Look outside, look outside. That person has that. So I'm like, well, what is your inner compass telling you? What is that telling you? Because this is your greatest conduit, right? So I teach how you can tell if a body has an ache or a pain. Well, what's going on? Where did you walk into, and what tool can you use? So people tell me the more they use even some of the basic ones they've heard and twist it to move to a more advanced one, they go, oh my gosh, that corrected itself within minutes
Yeah.
versus weeks.
Yeah.
Or they cut off, like now they're cutting off arguments, and they're spending most of their time in creation mode and joy mode. And, and everybody gets stuck at some point again, but it's like, okay, what do you need? Like, here I am. What do you need? So we make sure there's a lot of different ways of community and being there to say, what do you require? Because everybody is at a different level,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
and that's where we also have to be compassionate, that right now, with a lot of people transitioning, they have a lot of fear, but they don't want to tell people they have fear.
Mm.
I see it a
Mhm.
lot. I work with a lot of businessmen. They have a lot of insecurities, as well as
Mhm.
women. Women, we have a lot of insecurities we have to work through. They do too. So it's understanding, how can you elevate yourself,
Mhm.
change your life direction for what you know is your purpose, but also be able to continue to help change the people around you. And you don't even have to say anything. Just be you.
You don't have to say anything, just be you, which can sometimes be tricky and
Hmm.
difficult, but that's part of the journey, right? Just learning
Yeah.
how to be themselves.
Yeah.
So, if you were to share one tool or one
Mhm.
strategy with our audience today to help them,
Mhm.
sort of move through or be themselves, what would you say?
Yeah.
What
I
would
I call it I call it my one simple tool. I do love it because people, I'll tell you one of the stories mine they love is, but it's, I always tap the heart. I say God, which is universe divine,
you
whatever
Mhm,
say
mhm.
poker, whatever words, but I'm like always, so I pull, if say something was happening, I pull the energy in of what I require, and I tap the heart. I'm like, thank you, God, reset, let go. And I pull the energy down. So thank you, God, reset, let go. And I do that about 3 times. Now, what happens is it takes you, when you're pulling the energy down, it takes you right out of your head into your heart.
Mhm,
See what we're
mhm.
doing? We're going down. So it can let go of what that issue is. So I've had people where the kids do it at school and they're like, I'm not anxious. I'm letting that go. That wasn't my energy. Or we had one lady, her husband didn't even know all this stuff. He was kind of like, oh, you guys are weird, but your life's getting good. Whatever. Go, honey. And they were in these caves swimming, and he got stuck, he got paralyzed, and in terms of he like frozen, like anxious,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And her daughter, who was a teenager, looked and said, Dad, do the one simple tool. And he's like, what are you talking about? She goes, well, we're not going to get out of here unless you do it. He's like, okay, I'll do it. So he did it. He took a breath and he went calm and swam through the rest of the,
Oh,
those caves they go snorkeling in, and it got too
yeah,
tight, right? So he
yeah,
panicked.
yeah.
And the daughter and the mom was like, you do that? Like, she goes, yeah, I watch it. Works. It works. Like, it really works. It sounds crazy, but it's reactivating the heart. So when the heart drive, I call it the heart drive, because
Yeah,
you need a hard drive in your computer. It doesn't work. Your hard drive in your computer is your heart drive in your body, right?
that's right.
So without the heart, you're not functioning. You can cut and paste your body, but not your heart. So, and I guess you get a heart transplant, but now you got somebody else's stuff going in you too. Right? So your heart drive, what you're doing is you're letting
Mm,
go of the cache in the hard drive when you do that, just like your computer, and you're overriding the program of the brain that's put you into a state that is not working for you, which is usually overthinking, over worrying, over analyzing. But that's why we also pull the energy in this way first, because you're pulling down that universal God energy that you need to bring in the body. And then you're releasing the corrupt programs that got you in this state. So I equate it to people with a computer so they can, because everybody has a computer, so they
yeah,
can relate. And then you understand that hard drive is running every other aspect of your entire being while you're here, just like your hard drive on your computer. And if you don't dump the cache, if and you don't dump that, you're hooped, you know.
I love that. So pulling the energy down, tapping the heart, and then you
And
said,
reset, let go. And I always say, thank
"Yes,
you, God. You can say
thank you,
universe
God.
divine, reset, let go.
Thank you, God. Reset, let go." I love that.
Because the heart, you're asking it. So it's almost like, look at it like you're turning your computer on and off. You know how you do a
Yeah,
reboot in your
yeah,
computer on and off? We've all done it. program's not working. I'm just shutting it down and I'm pulling it back up. It's the same thing. Yeah,
The
but you're
hard
doing it
close,
body. Yeah.
hard close. That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
I love that. Reset, let go. Thank you, God. Reset, let go. I'm definitely going
Yeah.
to use that. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for that. So, Tracy, if people wanted to get in contact with you and
Mhm.
learn more, where
Yeah.
can they find you?
Just tracylclark.com. I always say my initials TLC. You can't forget it. So they're like, "What's the L?" I'm like, I thanked my parents when I understood what was happening. I'm like, "Thank you for giving me good initials." They named my sister after a Kleenex box, and she got a little whiny. So I said, "I understood names after a while." They literally did too. I'm not joking. They did name her after a Kleenex box. Yeah. I'm like, "Mom, what were you thinking?"
Oh my gosh. Well, Tracy TLC, thank you so, so much for joining us here today. It's been wonderful. This conversation has been so rich and so filled with wisdom and gems. So thank you so, so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Well, thank you. And to everybody listening, yeah, fear to faith, like jump. It's the time.
It's
It's
the
the time.
time. It's the time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.